Now I explained the symptoms to her. At this point, it had reached oh, this is, sorry guys. Okay, so it had reached a point where I could be walking and I'd collapse on the road. So I remember this one time I was running errands in Momuji, in town, CBD, and I was passing a shop called Ibrahim's, and I couldn't remember what happened for around 20 minutes, but then when I woke up, I was inside the shop, and you know, the security guys were there trying to get me to sit, give me water, and again we called to come out. He took me to the hospital, and upon being checked, I had no blood. So now it had reached a point where my period was so heavy that I did not have sufficient blood in my system, and it made me become drowsy. So that is a symptom that started now in my early 20s that has now continued up until now. And I think kile ambacho nitaongelea nitasema kuna dawa ambazo sometimes napewa nitumie ili zisaidie na hizo symptoms, because getting drowsy is not okay. I would fall on the street, I would fall in the house, I would fall while cooking. And when I don't say fall, I'd collapse, like I'd get lightheaded and just, you know. So that symptom had started. So I started from there. The lower back ache, I had started developing a certain pain under my shoulder blade that I wasn't sure about, but then later on, apparently it was acid reflux. You know what I mean? My body done gotten so many types of, anyway. So I explained all this to Dr. Gita Shah, and so I talked about the lightheadedness because of, you know, losing a lot of blood. The clots had become quite intense. I almost didn't feel like I had drops of the layer shedding. It felt like I just had clots coming out. It was so heavy. The dysmenorrhea was so intense. What is it called? I had now started having a problem with digesting certain things. And when I say digesting means if I would take milk, I would have the worst diarrhea possible. It did not matter whether I was on my periods, whether I was ovulating. It was crazy. If I had wheat, anything with wheat, be it chapati, mandazi, mahamri, I would get so constipated. And it's not constipated of just constipated. I would get hemorrhoids popping, and I would be at the hospital, you know, being given gels, and yeah, so that wasn't pleasant. So I described all these symptoms to her, and she told me, you know, we're going to do a bunch of tests. Now around this time, I'd also started getting various feelings in my boobs when I was getting towards ovulation. Right after ovulation was a different sensation. During my period was a different sensation. So at this point, even I was concerned, like, what's going on with my boobs? I had done you know, breast cancer tests and whatnot just to check what was happening, and you know, they were like, it's cool. Now at this point, I was getting frustrated because, guys, my boobs be eeny, meeny, miny, mo, eeny, weeny, bitsy things, and they were giving me hell, you know, on top of everything. So, you know, I'm like, is it, now what else is this? And she's like, the stomach part could be IBS. I'm like, what? Shoulder blade could be acid reflux. Cool. I had also been told that before. The cysts could be PCOS. And now she's like, I'll have to do my own tests to confirm. Now the only thing that was clear to her was because I had undergone the surgical procedure, and if the doctor had said I had adenomyosis, then possibly, you know, results don't lie. So now she also confirmed really that I had a retroverted womb, because when uterus because when you know, the normal ultrasound is done by them applying the gel and checking, but for me, when they do that, they cannot see anything, so they have to do their transvaginal, which they insert those hand movements are not very pleasant, are they? You know, they would have to do that to check what's happening inside. And yes, I had cysts, and you know, at some point, you know, she was trying to look at my ovaries, and you know, there's these tests that they do to you, and you feel like, hey, am I gonna survive this? Then she went ahead to, you know, have my breasts examined, because she also wanted to rule out anything else that could be there. And came the final feedback from her, and she said, as much as, you know, you are diagnosed with adenomyosis, which, to be very honest, at that point I had no clue. I would Google and it would tell me I am going to die, I'm not going to have children, it's associated with other major diseases, and that's it. You know what Google does? If you don't use it wisely. It's a good tool, but if overused, it can screw you. So yeah, she tells me feedback, it's endometriosis. I remember this was not immediately. Remember, it was a bunch of tests and whatever that she did. She also did, you know, hormonal tests and whatnot, and she confirmed that was it. Now, obviously, to a 22-year-old mind, the first question was, you know, am I gonna be okay? What do I need to do? And am I ever gonna have children? It was very important to me, that last question, because I'm an only child. And one thing I've always wanted is to have like a football field, a basketball team of kids. Sorry, I see I am messing up something here. Let me just write that. Sorry. So she tells me, hey, again, take it easy. Avoid eating processed foods, sugar, wheat, dairy, and stick to greens and you know, vegetables holistically, lots of fruits, and your immunity boosters. But by this time, she had already tried to explain that endometriosis is an autoimmune disorder, so it kind of meant I was wondering how I would be on my periods, and it was so easy to pick up things like flu and whatnot. It did not make sense to me. And now she told me if I avoid those foods, then I would avoid, you know, things like hemorrhoids and diarrhea and whatnot, just not to heal me, but to manage the symptoms. She noticed some of the meds I had received back in Nairobi that were hormonal, and she felt like for my age, they were doing more harm than good. She advised me to exercise a lot. She advised me not to take alcohol. Now, truth be told, that last bit, we have not been doing so well, because I don't know, for some reason, yeah. Anyway, I'll get to that in another episode. So that is how it was for me as a young girl, discovering that this is what I have. Now, at that point, she had these things, you know, the 3D thing of a vagina and all that. And she tried to explain to me, this is this, and this is what is happening, and this is this, and this is that. She asked me to do a follow-up to check on the cysts and to also check on my ovaries. And let me tell you guys, we checked the cysts much later. This is after following eating clean, drinking lots of water, avoiding dairy products, avoiding wheat, avoiding alcohol, and okay, truth be told, I can't call it alcohol, I was just drinking. That was it. At that stage, I have advanced. I'm kidding, I'm only drinking wine now. Anyway, so when I went for the next, we just have to wait for that to pass. what was I saying? Anyway, actually imeenda mali kwingine for those few minutes when I turned away. So when I went back to the hospital, indeed, with proper diet, avoiding stress, let me tell you, avoiding stress, yeah, because apparently stress makes your hormones skyrocket. So I had to avoid stress, and remembering at that point I was working in an agency that needed my all. So that wasn't so easy. But when I went for a follow-up, I did not have a cyst in me, I did not have a fibroid in me. I still had all the other symptoms that were there, but God is good. At that point, I did not have all these things that they were talking about, that I saw. And you know, I'm one of those people that keeps my medical records. So to date, I still have them, and sometimes I open them. It's just there, you know what, whatever, 2014, and I'm like, wow, how did I move from this much huge cyst to nothing at all without any medication whatsoever? Prior to that, remember, I had been put on hormonal therapy. The only thing that remained constant was the pain. And at this point now, I am still in 2014. I would either, you know, need to go get a jab, and if not, I would take very, very heavy medication. Now, come to date, I have still not reached a point where I am able to survive without taking pain meds. Now, I'm not giving advice for anybody to take painkillers. I would advise you to first go see a good doctor, because when I went with my files to Dr. Gita Shah, at that point I felt like this was the end of it for me. I felt like it was done. The dysmenorrhea had become so intense. I could not function at work for those 7 days of my periods, and I have a short cycle of 21 days. So imagine a quarter of that time is dealt with periods, and then another quarter is preparing for ovulation, and I have 1 week of a break. I call it a break because that's the time where I feel like a human being, like a functioning human. And I was that young. And that's why I've called this the young girl stat, because if you have a sister, a cousin, a lady friend who's going through anything that I've mentioned, I would advise you to hold their hand and assist them getting a good doctor that they can go see, carry out the necessary tests, and just get to know what it is you're dealing with. Often than not, it could just be something else, not endometriosis. There are very many other conditions that are there, or maybe it could just be nothing really sometime. And I think to close, I would say dysmenorrhea is not normal, but at the same time, be on the lookout for any of the other symptoms that I've mentioned. Now, in the next episode, I'm going to try and flesh out ayo majina. What is adenomyosis? What is PCOS? What is fibroids? And what is endometriosis, to the best of my understanding. Until then, I hope you watch out for your body, listen to it, and treat it right. Good food, exercise, mindful thinking, and avoiding stress really does go a long way. Oh, and exercises. So yes, it's been Jess. That is my teenage stroke early 20s story to do with endometriosis, and up until figuring out what I was dealing with. And now next will be getting to understand the what is endometriosis. Up until then, bye guys, take care. Mwah. Bisous, 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 bisous.